Hey, this is Leach with Simpson Math, and if you're watching this, I bet you're in my business statistics class. First, hi, especially if you're online and I haven't met you yet. I'm just wanting to show off a few things in Chapter 2, specifically with Excel. I have 3 questions I'm going to show off your number 1, number 10, and number 24 in your homework. I just want to show you how to, or at least how I would do it in Excel. There's a few other problems that you should use Excel, but the things I'm going to show you today, you should be able to help transfer to those. So let's get started. So I'm going to switch my camera. That one. There we go. Okay, so this is number 1. It says the human. I guess I can make this bigger just a bit. Yeah, that's a bit better. So it says the human resource group for a company collected data summarizing the educational level of the company's employees. They found that 159 have no college degree, 44 have an associate's degree, 223 have a bachelor's, 49 have masters, and 28 have PhDs. And they want you to then make a frequency table for the education level of the company, and then make a relative frequency. And then when you do your relative frequency, to round to 2 decimal places. So I know my camera's in the way for that part, but if I can do that, that'll fix it. So I have a magic teacher button, and I've turned this on so that way the answer's already done for us, because I'm going to focus on how we do this in Excel. So they're asking for a frequency distribution. So if it's the frequency, it's just the number of. So the 159, the 44, the 223, so forth, just put them down. So this is just the frequency. So how frequently do we see none? How frequently do we see A? How many bachelors, how many masters, how many PhDs, so forth. Just a little silly tip about MyLab: if you highlight the sentence, you'll see numbers that don't highlight. Those numbers that don't highlight are those that will change from problem to problem. So that's why I have no worries about kind of showing you how I would do this, because when you get to work this, you're going to have different numbers anyway. So that's how that works. All right, so let's find this relative frequency. So just remember the term relative frequency. It's relative to what? So if I was to say, oh my God, I walked in the room and there were 44 people who were all alike with my variable that I'm looking at. There were 44 who have an associate's degree. Is that a little or a lot? Well, in this room, shrug, how big of the room did I just walk in? Was there a room of 50 people? And that's 44 out of 50, that's a lot. If there's a room of 50,000 people and there's only 44, that would be quite little. So we make it relative to the size of everything by turning it into a percent or proportion. Here it's clear with the percent symbols after the boxes that they want them to be a percent. Even though it doesn't say to make it be a percent, they're saying it here with those percentages. And just say around to 2 decimal places. There's nothing to download because there's no Excel file to download, because they're giving me the information in a sentence form. So I need to be able to put it into an Excel document if I want to do that. So you probably saw my Worgen background when I was switching things. So yeah, I play World of Warcraft and I'm a fire mage Worgen. So we have, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to type in the frequency table. So we have level and frequency, and to go between level and frequency, I just press the tab key just to save myself a little bit of time, and then none, and then you can just press the return key to move down, BA, MA, PhD, and then my numbers. All right, so what I want to find out is to find the relative frequency. So I can zoom in a little bit on this for y'all. There we go. So I'm just making myself my own little table, and what I need to do is I'm going to put the relative frequency here. I'm going to have Excel help me calculate that, and then put that over here. So one thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put a total line, and I might even maybe even bold this so that way it looks a little bit bigger and not necessarily part of the data. So to get the total, I'm going to press enter, and then there's a few ways we could do this. You can just treat this as a calculator, so I can just say this cell plus, plus, and plus. So I got those cells by, again, once you press enter, it's entering into a formula mode. And so by clicking, it's then referencing that cell as B2. And I'm just pressing plus on my keyboard. Oops, missed it, but I can pick it back up and get those totals. That's a little janky, for being honest. The better way would be to do sum. So I'm going to press enter, and then there's a function you should become best friends with, and that's just sum. So if you just start typing after you press the equal sign, you'll get your list of formulas. You can also just come up here to this formula option and start searching for them. And so sum's a popular one, so it's usually often up at the top. So it's just sum. Oh, sorry, I clicked on the thing, so it's trying to help me out. So it's kind of doing that for me. I'm getting ahead of myself, so let me back up for a second. So let me just show you how I would do it. I would just say enter, type in the word sum, and then open parenthesis. And I need to say that I want to go have all these numbers from B2 down to 6.2. I'm sorry, B2 down to B6. Need to get to sleep. So what we're going to do is I'm going to just click and drag. I say I want these, and so I highlight. And notice how Excel numbers it. It's B2 colon B6. So that is Excel's way of numbering all those. It's adding up those 5 cells. So if I press enter, I get that same 503 that I had before. Notice with that colon, if I for some reason wanted to add up multiple columns, it would do that. It goes from the top left corner down to the bottom right corner. So when it's just one column, it's just the first to the last. If it's one row, it's again the first to the last. But if it's a box like that, then it's from the top left corner to the bottom right corner. But I just need these. So another trick is if you weren't sure about what formula to use, you could just press the formula here. Be like, oh yes, sum. I'm going to add things up. That's what sum means. So pick sum. And then here, Excel is trying to be helpful. And it's guessing. It's looking around and says, well, I see numbers. And the numbers close by are just from B2 to 6.2. So it's actually doing that for us. So it's saying, well, I'm going to add up these numbers. And so you can just say, okay, and it takes care of that. So that's one way of doing that. Right now, we're just going to do a little bit of math here. So to find the relative frequency, I'm going to take this 159 and just divide by 503. So I could do the math. I could say equals 159 divided by 503. And again, I would get my answer. Notice that's what it wants, the 3161. But, well, this is Excel. Let's take advantage of what it has available to us. So if I say equal to, and then I want to say this 159, and I want to then say divided by 503. By me clicking, it's referencing B2, notice it colors it blue, and then do my divide, that's just the slash on the keyboard that's above the 8 on your number pad, or the one that's on the question mark. And then divide by my total, which is 503, which is cell B7, and it gets me that same division. Notice when I click on it, it says here that it's just this B2 over B7. Double click on it and you can kind of edit in that row again, and you'll see that. Now, there's a nice thing that Excel does is you can fill. So there's a few ways to fill. You can highlight. We need to make this window just a bit bigger. And then I want to see if I can get to see the word to say fill to show up. There it goes. It's this right here, this fill down. So I could check this, I could come to fill and say fill down, and it would fill that formula all the way down. Now, there's obviously a bit of a problem because it's creating a divide by 0 error. What's happening is it is referencing, it took that B3 and it's referencing B8. Or down here, notice it's B5 and then it's referencing B10. I don't want that. I will always want to be dividing by 503. So, I mean, you could just type in 503, but that's not really how Excel, that's not the best way to do that. I want to make sure so when I fill, it doesn't change it at all. So we're going to do what's called an absolute reference. And so what happens if we put, literally it's dollar signs. Why do they pick dollar signs? Not sure, but it's just how it works. So I can freeze, imagine you're Elsa and you're just freezing it. You're freezing, I can freeze the column, I can freeze the row, I can freeze them both, or I can freeze none of them. So the trick is, if you just press your F4 key, is it will toggle through those references. So there's 4 different total possibilities. You can have none, like this. You could have them both. You could have just the row, or just the column. In this particular case, it doesn't really matter. I'm really technically just freezing the row, but I'm just going to go ahead and just go with that first option and just freeze them both. So I have dollar signs in front of both of them. You also could just type in the dollar signs. If you're on a laptop, your function keys might do fancy things. So you can, you might want to, and you have, or if your function keys, your F4 is taken up by something else, you might have to press Fin and then F4 to be able to actually access that function key, that F4. So press F4, and it's still doing the division like I want it. Before I do a fill down, let me change one thing, and I'm going to make this be a %. So the quickest way to do that is just to press Control 1, or the using your right click, you can say right click Format Cells. There might be some options somewhere up there, but I always just either right click or do Control 1. And we want to do a %, so I'm going to come down here and say %. And it wants 2 decimal places, so I'll leave it at 2. So I'll let Excel do the rounding for me. And there we have it. So there's 31.61%. So that's looking like it's supposed to. Now, of course, when you're working, you don't know what the answers are, but I do. So we're just comparing. So now what we're going to do is we're going to fill down. So again, I could highlight and then do fill down. But I'm going to show you one other trick. So instead of highlighting and filling down, my preferred method is I just put my cursor in the bottom right corner. Notice what your cursor looks like is important in Excel. So right now, most of the time it's a white plus. That's so that way if you click and drag, you're just highlighting or clicking in the cell. If you have a cell selected and you move your cursor onto the border of it, you get a four-way headed arrow. So that's if you can just pick it up and move that cell, and it just takes and just move it wherever. It's kind of like a cut and paste, but you're just dragging and moving it around. But notice in the bottom right corner there is a little square. So what we do with that square, notice when you move your cursor onto that, it turns into a black plus, not a 3D with shadow black plus, just a black plus. Sorry, 3D with white shadow is what it normally looks like, but we just have our black plus. Click that and drag. You can drag in one direction, either down or horizontal. You can't do a rectangle with this. So this way I'm just going to drag down, and this is my fill down shortcut. So now what it did, it's the same, and that's the same thing that would happen if I highlighted and said fill down. And there is a keyboard command option, but I always forget what that is because I don't use it. I think it might be Control D. I'm not sure. But what's important is look at the formulas. This formula is referencing B3 divided by still the 503 B7. Oops. This formula is referencing the 49 divided by 503. Oh, the error that I just did, I was inside this formula editing it, and I clicked another cell, and so it tacked on that other cell. So it clicked in C3, do you see? And so now it's tacking that on, it's editing that formula. No fear, just get out of it. You can press escape and it won't make a change, or if it did accept the change, just press undo. It's all good. You can undo, redo to your heart's content in Excel. And so there's my bolding up that bottom row. So there's my percents there. So just to recap what I did, I typed in my numbers because I wasn't able to copy this one. I used sum to be able to get the sum of those 5 numbers. And then I used just simple division. So I did B2 divided by my total, but I did the absolute reference. So I put the dollar signs on both. I really just needed the dollar sign on the 7, but I went ahead and did it on both because it not really mattering too much this time. And then I used the fill down to drag this down so that way I will get the rest of my division. And then to finish up your problem, just move over. You don't need to type in the percent symbols because it's there for you. Then I would just move over my answers. All right, let me jump to 10. By the way, to quick navigate in MyLab, you can use the arrows here, but if you just click the 3 lines, you see all of your questions and all that you've done. You should see checks and X's along the way, but this is how you can quickly navigate to your other questions. So here's 10. So I'm going to show you how to do this. So this question says, as part of the marketing group at a film studio, you're asked to find out the age distribution of the audience of the studio's latest family-friendly film, as well as if the viewers had seen the movie before. You conduct exit interviews by randomly selecting people to question at 20 different movie theaters. The results are in the table below. Complete parts A through E. We're just going to do part A because I'm just worrying about the Excel part. I just want to make sure you're good to go. Again, you don't have to do Excel, but Excel is going to really speed this up, and you need to. And now's the time to scratch back into memory from your BCIS course, to make sure that you're good to go when it comes to Excel. So, kind of get used to using it. Now, with this, I see 15 numbers plus different categories and a bunch of things going on. I don't want to have to type all that in, and good thing we don't. So I can just click this button, and I can have the options to open it how I want to. I can copy it to the clipboard, open something called StatCrunch, but what we're doing today is I'm going to open in Excel. So I'm going to click that. So I have little baby hiccups. All right, open up my the download. You'll want to select Enable Editing because you're going to do a little bit of editing here. It went away. Come back. It went over to my other monitor. That's where it went. Okay. So what we're going to do, the question is, it says to find the column percentages is what we're tasked to do, is to find the column percentages. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave that data there, and I'm just going to copy it, Control C, and paste it into a new row. Paste it, Control V. I remember cut, copy, paste. It's the XCV. They're right beside each other on the keyboard. C makes sense because it's copy. And it's not P for paste because that's print, and that's kind of, at least at one point in our lives, more important. But it's kind of makes sense that cut, copy, and paste are friends by the keyboard. So C for copy. The X looks like scissors. You could take scissors and open them up into an X. So that's why I think of for cut. And then the V, I think of the V like the tip of a paste bottle. So like an Elmer's glue, that orange tip looks like a V. So that's the tip of the paste bottle. So cut, copy, paste. And they're friends right beside each other, so your finger's already there anyway. One note with I'm sorry, throwing a lot of things at you, but one thing with copying, the clipboard is it's a very weak clipboard on Excel. You know how in like Word, if you were to copy something and then you were to type for an hour and then you were to press paste again, it would remember what was on the clipboard. But this clipboard, it's like the clipboard that you have a board and you have the teeth that holds onto paper. It's like the clipboard is very weak. Once you put something on there and try to do something else, that paper just falls out and disappears. So if I type or do anything else, leave Excel, do anything else, that goes away. So I just type 5 and you saw those running ants disappear. So let me copy it again. All of this. Do you see how there are these running ants going around? These little dotted lines moving, we call them running ants. That's showing you what is on the clipboard, but as soon as you type or do anything else, that clipboard disappears. So anytime you copy or cut, copy, or paste something, you do have to do it immediately. All right, so what I'm going to do is, so I have my original data up here, just kind of wanted it to stay preserved. I'm going to delete out by highlighting, dragging it, clicking and dragging, and then just pressing the delete key. If you press the backspace key, notice it just deletes that top left one. But if you press the delete key, which there is like on a PC it says delete. On a Mac, I think it would just maybe be try Control Delete or Shift Delete. One of those will then be the difference. But I'm pressing the delete key, and that then properly deletes instead of just deleting the top left corner. Might be function delete. I don't know. Try those other auxiliary buttons along with delete and on the Mac, and then that will work. All right. So I'm looking for the percentages. So in order to do this, I need to get the totals. Let me rewind. Boop. Delete all this. I messed up. I didn't actually delete like I said I was going to. Actually, I'll just fix it by undoing. So what I'm going to do first, my bad, is let's find the totals. So total here. I don't need to find the total here, but let's go and practice doing that. For my sanity, I'm going to bold, and then I probably should have done this on the last example. I'm going to just highlight it in a light gray, and put this bottom one in a little bit darker gray. That's just for my sanity, just to kind of keep it be a little bit separate. I don't see the lines there, so I'm also going to say all borders on those as well, just so we can see those lines. I like to just do that, so something like that, and the shading is a nice, easy on the eyes tool to be able to keep those things separate. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a bunch of sums. I'm going to say equal sum of, and I open my parenthesis, and I want those three, and then just press enter. So 34 plus 0 plus 2 is that 36. Then I'm going to fill right, so I'm clicking that right little square, dragging it to the right, and I just fill it across. Do a little bit of just double check in one, be like, yep, it's adding up the right things. And then I'm going to do my my sum horizontally. So equals sum. Now, admittedly, for this problem, I don't need these because I'm doing column totals, but let's just practice. So I want that entire row added up, and then drag that down. And then one of two ways. I can either drag down and add up these rows, add up this row, my column totals to get my total of 448, or I'm just going to undo that. I can drag over this and add up the 355, 82, and 51 to get the 448. It doesn't matter, you end up at the same thing. All right, so now that I have that done, I need to find percentages. So I'm going to copy that out and then paste this down. But I'm going to do one little trick is I'm going to paste down, how do I want to do this? Do I need percentages? Sorry, I'm thinking to myself. There's a few ways of doing this. Let's do, if we want the column percentages, let me just show you what I'm thinking. So if you, right now if I press paste them, they're pasting in as the formulas, which is fine. But in a minute, I'm going to delete out this stuff. So one option is to, let me copy this again, is to paste this in as just the values. Oh, get rid of the formatting. Paste it in as values and source formatting. There we go. So what that just did, let me show you that again. So there's this little, anytime you press paste, you get some paste options that pop up here. So I'm selecting values and source formatting. What that did is it got rid of the formulas here. So this 36 is now a 36. This 159 is now just a 159. It got rid of that being a formula. Because I'm about to highlight those and delete those so I can find those percentages. All right. There's another way that you could have done that and just use everything up there as percents down below, but I'll show you that on number 24. Okay, so quickly now, let's find these column percentages. So it's just like we were doing a second ago because we just have that division. So I'm going to say equal to, and this time though I'm referencing this cell up here. No, I'm going to undo this. I showed you that cool trick about pasting as values, but I'm just going to paste it back and just let them be the formulas. And then I'm actually just going to delete these altogether. Yeah, there we go. So that way, because I'm going to completely reference this, I'll have all of this be percentages. That'll look a little bit better. Sorry, just kind of deciding things on the fly a little bit. Okay, so now let's find these column percentages. So I'm going to again press equals. And then I'm going to reference, I want this under 6 never, and I'm going to find its column percentage. So its column percentage is going to be the 34 over the 36. But because when I drag down, I want it always to be referencing that 36, I'm going to press F4, but I'm going to press it again until only just the 5 is represented. Because in a second, I'm going to drag this across as well. And I want the columns to change as well. So I'm freezing in just the row 5. So let me press enter and I'll show you what that means. And they want them to be percents. So Control 1 or right click format cell and switch it to percent. And I'm going to move it down to only one decimal place. So now I'm going to drag down. And notice when it does, we end up with 9405.6. There is that 100, which should make sense because it's 100% of that column. We don't need the 100 for our answer, but it's nice to have it in there. And then if you're wanting to keep up with the shading that you did, you could say fill without formatting, so it's not changing the formatting. Nope, not that one. Let's just let it just do its thing. Let's just let it copy down. So some of the highlighting got messed up. Oh well, we can always fix that. Okay, so are we? Oh, I guess I was about to ask, are we okay with that? But you're not here. So I'm gonna actually a little trick to be able to fix that formatting. I'm going to fill from my total over, and when I did, it replaced the word total, but I don't want that. I can actually drop this little drop down and say fill formatting only. So I literally just copied over the formatting. And I'm going to make that be a % as well. I know I'm fiddling about something that you don't even need to answer me here, but I like things to be pretty. All right, so now that I have that, I only had to do that once because now I'm going to fill this all the way across. So I'm going to fill this all the way over to here. And by me locking in, freezing in only the column, that allowed me to be able to do that. Let me show you what would happen. So let me do that and show you that those are the right answers. 69.6, 51.6, 22.0 here, those are the right answers. Let me show you what would have happened if these would have been the absolute reference with all the dollar signs. So let me drag that down with all those dollar signs. My formatting got messed up again, but I'll just stop worrying about it. And I'm going to drag over. And notice what happened here. This is a big problem. So this cell here is referencing 156 over the 36 because it is not moving from the row or the column. And I need it to be able to move across. So that is the, oops, let me get out of that. I pressed escape to get out of those options. And so now I pressed undo, but I made sure that I just have my only the 5 frozen. So all of these just have the 5 frozen. You can drag that down again, but I undid it back to the correct state. So then now I drag it over. And notice that let's check back at this over 21 never. It is going to the right thing. But then when I look at this one, it is moved down, but it is that bottom row is not changing. So those absolute references are essential. I think this would probably not be right if I moved. No, it would be right. That's good. Yeah, so this same column here would also work as well because it is looking at these up here. And I can, just make it be bold and that gray. And I wanted that to be a darker gray just because I'm silly like that. All right. So there you have it. That's a nice, I know I talked for a while, but it should be able to be a fast way to be able to do that without having to key in 15 numbers, so without having to key in 34 divided by 36, 0 divided by 36, 2 divided by 36. This just kind of speeds that up, and it does that rounding and percentaging for you. I'm going to quickly do 24. I did 24 in class for my in-person students, but I'm just going to do this one for you real fast. Do want to show you that on this question, this is one that they're wanting the conditional proportions. This is just the conditional proportion by row. So it's basically what I just did, but you're doing the conditional proportions by the ethnicity, by the population, then by moviegoers, and by tickets. So if you notice on my answers here, all the rows add up to 100. So instead of the column conditions, it's then the row, and we actually call it the conditional proportions or probabilities or percentages, all these P words. So I opened up my table, and I do want to show you that if you click on the white space, or really just click anywhere, actually no, the white space, you're able to drag around the table. That's helpful so that way it's not in the way. And then again here, I can take this and open it in Excel. And I'm going to do this one real fast just as another example. Enable editing. It keeps going over to my other monitor. Here we go. So it does a little silly thing with this hyphen here. It should just be a hyphen. And then if you right click, you know how you can adjust the bars here. If you just double click on it, boom, it'll shrink it up so that way it is lined up correctly. This one did give me my totals, so that's nice. I'm going to go ahead and make myself worry about these, but it's just helpful for me to see those separated. So we're going to find the row totals, sorry, the row conditions. So I'm going to again copy this, paste it down. This time I didn't have to find the totals, so that's good. I'm going to delete out actually everything. And then we're going to find the totals of the row. So this 67.1% is 210 over the 313. That's what they're wanting. They're wanting the conditional proportions of ethnicity for all three groups. So the conditional proportion of ethnicity. So the ethnicity is what's changing. I'm pointing at my monitor like you can see. The conditional proportion, the ethnicity is what's changing. So it's the breakdown of ethnicity of the entire population. Breakdown of ethnicity of moviegoers. Breakdown of ethnicity among the ticket holders. All right, so let me find where did I put it? There we go. So quickly, to find this 210, again, I'm going to do equal to 210 over my 313. That's my B2 over F2. But in order for me to be able to move everything around, I need to freeze something. I do want the row to change. So as I go down, I want the row to change. But as I drag it across, I will not want the column to change. So I'm going to freeze the F. So I could just type in a $ in front of the F, but I'm going to, with my cursor around near or around the F2, I'm going to press the F4 button on your keyboard until just the F2 is showing. So sorry, until just the F has a $ in front of it. So again, it was like this. Press it a few times until we get just the F frozen. So now the row will change, but the column will not. Make it an absolute reference. And again, Control 1, switch it to percentage, and just one decimal place. All right, I drag down, which seems a little bit silly. Let me actually drag across first so we can get that full total row to double check that. So that way it is going to 100%. That makes more sense. So it's the 15 out of the 313, the 34 out of the 313, and then I can drag that down. And there's my full breakdown, just double checking my answers that's what it was. Put my highlights back. There you go. So then I just copy and transfer this over. And then they're asking about independence. And if you look at, they're asking the relationship between moviegoers and the population as a whole. So if you look at that, these are pretty similar. They're not exactly the same, but they're pretty similar. But then you do notice that there are the breakdown of there is a difference though between moviegoers and tickets. So it's the fact that the proportion of people who go see a movie is pretty similar across, but it seems that according to this data that Hispanics buy more tickets. That means they go see, the way I'm interpreting this data is they've gone and seen more movies, whereas everyone goes kind of like my brain, like at least once a year at about the same rate, but Hispanics tend to go proportionally more. They see more movies in the theaters. That's how I kind of read that data there. Okay, so I know this was kind of me rambling for a little while, but I hope this helped you understand how to, a little bit of tips and tricks in Excel. I'll be doing this from time to time, so if you are working on something and you're like, oh, I wish Mr. Leach would talk about this, don't be afraid to ask me for help. So I hope this helped, and I'll see you either in person or online, or see you around or in the next video. All right, ta-ta.